What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the market very briefly. I'm going to talk about SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, and the QQQ very quickly. Talk about what's happening with the markets, what you should be watching for. But before I do anything like this, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in 2 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, guys, looking at SPY, we are slowing down in the morning so far, continuing to drop. But the question is, how on earth will we react to this 444 support? Could SPY get a bounce or will it continue to sink? Now, 5 things to remember about the markets would be the fact that there are some weakening factors in China right now for their economy, as we're seeing consumer sentiment weakening and credit data is not looking as strong for them. And then on top of that, there's news coming out about how it's going to be very telling about how retailers are doing, as we have big earnings coming out for the Home Depot and Target and Ross and Walmart, and the list goes on. And then on top of all of this, we also have more data about the state of the consumer from inflationary expectations and etc. Now, I want to remind everyone today at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time or New York time, or 1.5 hours after the market opens, we have the Consumer Inflationary Expectations Report coming out. Expect some volatility because of this, and we will see how this ends up affecting the markets. Be prepared for some high volatility and get ready for a very interesting move 1.5 hours after the market opens. Then, when it comes to earnings coming out, we just have a couple. We have like Monday.com. We have a few others like Urban Grow, and the list goes on. Nothing too big for today, but for Tuesday we have the Home Depot and etc. For Wednesday we have like Target and Walmart. For Thursday, it's going to be very interesting and very telling. Now, we have some negative news for Tesla and the market so far. Tesla's cut prices in China due to the weakening demand and weakening economic conditions. Despite the fact that they told us that they're likely not going to do this again, they ended up doing it. And then they may not even have a choice to bring up their demand, because demand may be slowing down a lot over there. And they ended up cutting some of their Model Y versions, the prices for them. That is negative news for Tesla, and Tesla's sinking as a result of it. So Tesla's sitting at support at 235. Remember, we called out this level. So it could have bounced very close to where we were, or it could have dropped a little bit and then tried to bounce. Those were like the 2 original targets. But I have to make an adjustment now because we got some very negative news. So it's just a matter of, will Tesla base around 235? Could we hold this level? If it does so, there's a possibility of it trying to base and make its way back up to about 242 plus. Or if we break below 235, we could see Tesla continue to sink down to 230. And if 230 fails us, we could even see 225 on Tesla before this thing tries to bounce. So it really depends on how it reacts to these supports. It is looking relatively weak right now, but 235 is going to be key. It has filled its gap already, so we'll see if Tesla tries to get any bounce off this level or not. No guarantees, because the news has been quite negative. So we have to be open-minded and watch support very carefully. But I do believe a bounce will come eventually. It's just that the negative news is trumping it so far, and it could take a little bit longer than how it was initially looking. Looking at SPY right now, we have 2 very important things worth noting. Remember, we have this confluence of support right about here, right? We have this previous resistance at this 444 area, which is now going to be acting as its support. We also have this trend line that's blue right here, this long trend line. We also have the support at the falling wedge. So there's a possible inverse hand shoulder structure that's developing. We could see the market attempt to bounce here if we hold 444 very nicely and the buyers step in. There's a possibility of us retesting the high at 446 and potentially breaking that and getting closer to 448 to 450. Or what could happen is we break below that. If 444 fails us, we're going to be watching this low right about here around the 443.35 area. If that ends up failing us, then this orange possibility right here, this could end up playing out where we end up breaking down to fill the gap at 442, maybe a little bit lower than that. And then we see the market slowly curl up and then eventually get a bounce. That seems more probable to me if we end up breaking this support. So it really depends on if this inverse hand shoulder structure plays out, or if we end up failing to hold in, we just continue to break down. That's going to be your key level. Watch 444 very carefully. Really depends on how we react to it. And then even if we do get a bounce, guys, I'm not saying the market's going to keep going. We could always reject at resistance and come right back down. So I want to make that as clear as possible. These are the very important things to watch for. When it comes to specific levels on SPY, don't forget to be watching 444 is support. If that fails, it's 443.35, and then we have 442 below that if that fails. Now, we could bounce and try to base off this level because we have a possible inverse head and shoulder structure that could lead to a nice bounce in the markets. But just to be safe, we have to watch for confirmation. Then to add on to this, the IWM is looking very similar. Uh, there's a possible inverse head and shoulder structure. It came down to our level already. It has to try to bounce here for this to play out. If it fails to do so, watch 189 as support. If that fails, it could sink all the way down to 187.5. So if it bounces off 189, there's a possibility that it could, maintain this inverse head and shoulder structure. If it fails to do so, we could see downside. So it really depends on a lot of factors. For Tesla, it's looking kind of weak right now, testing support barely at 235. Does Tesla bounce off here or not? It could try to bounce and make its way back up to fill this gap at 242. If it fails to bounce off 235, we're going to be watching this thing come all the way down to the low 230s before we do see an attempt for it to bounce. That's going to be very, very key. It depends on how it reacts to 235. It did fill its gap down at 235 already, so that's a good sign, but really it depends on how it reacts, so be very, very prepared for that. We also have big data coming out in 1.5 hours after the market opens, so that's going to be important. For Aapl, there's a possible inverse head and shoulder structure developing on it. It needs to bounce right here for this to play out. If it fails to do so, watch a retest of 176.5. If that fails us, then 175 is a possibility. But we want to see this thing bounce right here. If we want to be bullish, we need to see it bounce. If it fails to do so, that's not going to be a good sign. For the QQQ, same thing, it's at 365. If it bounces, it could make its way up to 368 plus. If it fails to do so, watch this thing retest 364.5. And potentially, if that fails us, 363 is a possibility and even lower levels. So we'll be watching that all very, very carefully. The dollar is up, which is a bearish signal so far, but we'll see if the dollar ends up reversing or not. I think it's gapping up, so it could end up coming back down. If that happens, that could be a good sign for the markets. We had this rising wedge on the dollar. This actually ended up playing out in the morning before it came right back up. So it was very, very weak, nothing too significant so far. So we're going to be watching this. The 10-year Treasury yield is kind of up, which is not a good sign. It depends on if it gaps up or not. If it's gapping up, this could lead to a slowdown, but it is starting to curl on this MACD. If it ends up breaking down, because it is forming like a bullish structure, so I'm not as confident about this. If this does end up breaking down because there's a bearish divergence and it comes down to fill this gap, that could help the market bounce intraday, but it really depends on if it ends up rejecting or not off support. So that's going to be important for the markets, the 10-year Treasury yield, and etc. I think I just skipped Nvidia. I'm sorry about that. Nvidia, that's going to be the last one I talk about. It's at 405. It really depends on if that holds or not. If 405 breaks on Nvidia, you're going to be watching this thing come all the way down to 400, 397, and 395 as our supports. And we should be seeing a bounce very close to one of these levels, if not all the way down to like 390. Those are some very, very key levels to be like looking out for. I find them very, very probable, very, very important. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, Nvidia has actually broken below its 200 EMA already, so it's still looking weak. Going to be watching for a test of 400, if not 397, and then below that we have like 390. It really depends on if it could hold these levels or not. Watch it very carefully and see how it reacts to support. If it tries to balance, you're going to be watching it make its way right back up to this resistance around this 416 area. And if that breaks, 420 to 422 are on the table. But for now, watch the levels and we have to just do what we have to do. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, everyone. Have fun trading. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys in the next one. The market to the moon as the long term is very bright. And peace out.